The information provided on this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your qualified health provider with any questions you may have. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. Reliance on any information provided here is solely at your own risk.
Welcome. This is Birth, Baby. Your hosts are Ciarra Morgan and Samantha Kelly. Ciarra is a birth doula, hypnobirthing educator, and pediatric sleep consultant.
Samantha is a birth doula, childbirth educator, and lactation counselor. Join us as we guide you through your options for your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum journey. Thank you to our listeners for your continued support. If you enjoy our content, please be sure to like, follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps us gain visibility to other people that could benefit from listening in. Hello, everyone. Today we have with us Jacqueline Ramsey, and she is the founder of Freshtest, which is a natural FemCare company based in LA. And it was founded in 2018, and she launched some more natural diagnostic glucose beverage, which, by the way, the other one tastes real gross. So yay for options, right? And healthcare providers are loving it. Labs are loving it. Women are loving it. So thank you so much for being here today. We can't wait to learn from you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
Yes, we're so excited to have you on. I know for so many of our clients, the gestational diabetes, the Glucola test is such a point of anxiety for people because you hear all of these like horror stories of like, oh, it tasted so bad and I had to fight to keep it down and it made me sick. And it sucks. And it's just nice to have something out there that is another option.
Thank you. I felt the same way when I did some research on it. It is the most talked about part of pregnancy, believe it or not, because there's those horror stories. And there is a very high percentage of patients that have adverse events to Glucola. So
yeah, it's tough. So can you kind of introduce the Freshtest for us and just kind of explain how it differs from that traditional Glucola testing method?
Sure thing. And so for moms out there that haven't done it yet, so traditionally women are tested between 24 to 28 weeks for gestational diabetes. And gestational diabetes is so unique in that there's often no signs or symptoms. So we have to stress the pancreas with a suitable amount, an exact amount of glucose to determine if your body is handling glucose well, or sugar in general. So traditionally, there were products out that came out in the 1970s. It's often called Glucola. They have 50, 75, and 100 gram products, but the formula really hasn't changed since. So yeah, when I was pregnant in 2016, I saw this product and I was starting to read labels and I was like, what? Like, how has this not changed? And so right then and there, when I was pregnant, I decided to take it on and reinvent the product. So the Freshtest is a natural organic glucose beverage, additive-free, preservative-free. It has 3 ingredients: organic dextrose, lemon, and mint. And it's delicious. It's like one of the best lemonades I think that's out there. And we have a strawberry basil launching next month as well. So it's very, very simple and straightforward, and that is just an additive-free, clean product. But believe it or not, it took years to get it through FDA. So
y'all are getting fancy. Strawberry basil.
Thank you. Yes,
I love that.
Sounds like a mocktail.
Right?
It does sound like a mocktail. And, we have people that are, prior to Freshtest too, like, oh, my midwife let me eat 10 jelly beans. Or some people will say, my doctor told me to eat pancakes and syrup before I came in, which there's all of these things that are not, like, we don't know for sure how much someone got. So it does make it a little bit, tougher with than taking that to the lab and saying, like, how do you know quantitatively what they took, right? So How does this test compare in terms of like accuracy, reliability to the Glucola drink? Because I've actually seen in some Facebook groups just this last week, some people saying some doctors are refusing to use Fresh Test. And when people are asking why, they're saying because our machines are not, or our tests are not calibrated for doing that drink, which does not make sense. So can you clear a little bit of this up for us?
Yes, happy to. Well, first of all, when I formulated the product years ago, I went in thinking, you know what, I'm going to come out with a pressed juice or do like a jelly bean thing. I had taught diabetes classes for 10 years. So I'm like very close to carb counting and all of the ins and outs of that. But when I really looked into this test, it has to be glucose, and that's it. It can't be sucrose, fructose. It can't be a pile of pancakes, jelly beans, none of that. And the reason is all of those sugars affect your plasma blood glucose at a different point in time. And if it's not an exact amount, you could be beyond the threshold or under the threshold and just not get diagnosed properly. And it's so important to screen for this to prevent any complications down the road. So I think as more and more midwives and OBs and providers are looking into this, it is very apparent across the board. You can only use a diagnostic glucose beverage to screen for diabetes. And what makes a glucose beverage diagnostic is it's registered as a medical device. So we're a class 2 product. We go through all the tests, all the audits that the other products do. There's 4 brands that are approved in the US, and we are one of those 4. We're third in the market actually right now. But I do believe that when we came to market, a lot of doctors thought we were an alternative when we're not. We're actually exactly equivalent. But that scared some. So they would be like, no, we can't do that. It doesn't work with our equipment or whatnot, but we are. We're right. We're just a different brand. We're just not a big pharma name. So if they look into it.
We all know how that goes over. If it's not big pharma, people don't care about it, right?
Something like that.
It just doesn't have the clout to it if it's not big pharma, which is wild.
Right. But you know what? They can reach out to us. So we have all the clinical data, annual audits, instructions for use, all the vendor documentation that they need. And fortunately, in the last year, we've had really big hospital groups, big institutions, very big labs take us on. So I think that builds the credibility there.
Definitely. I think we talk about this all the time, both on this podcast and just in our general day-to-day. Things with women's healthcare, especially related to maternity care, is so slow to change because everyone is so feared. I mean, it's a big thing, right? Like it's, bringing a new life into the world and all of that. Like it's scary to change things, but they're so slow to change that we, come up against things like this and we're like, oh, we have this new drink and it's literally the same. It just tastes better. And they're like, no, not that. Absolutely not.
It's really interesting, the pushback, especially initially that I received. And I was like, you know what? For the amount of no's that I'm getting, the amount of pushback, I think there's a huge opportunity. And I was like, if I was a woman that went in, and I went in, I wasn't that health conscious, but I was like pregnant for the first time, listening to my body. And I was like, no, I don't think I want to do that product. And I had to switch OBs 3 times. And I was like, gosh, if it's this difficult, I mean, something needs to be done. So a lot of opposition, but I've worked in the medical industry since college. So now we're going on close to 20 years. And I felt like I could take it on and knew all the ins and outs to make it happen.
Yeah, definitely.
I know you kind of said it, but can we just explicitly say, because some people are going to be like, why would I want to take the Fresh Test instead of the Glucola drink? Like some people don't know, or they haven't looked into all of that. Can you tell us, like, what are your big takeaway differences?
Yeah, the biggest thing is for what I'm experiencing with all the patients, with the feedback and such, is the quality of the ingredients. First and foremost, besides all the additives, it's the quality of the ingredients. So if you were to take a boatload of corn dextrose, do you want it to be GMO dextrose? or do you want it to be organic and non-GMO? And I think that is the biggest differentiator. It is more expensive, but women tolerate it so well. So it's like, studies will indicate 10 out of 10 patients prefer the fresh test. We did a study of close to 400, all but one preferred the fresh test. So that it keeps it down, keeps your body happy. There's a lot fewer side effects. But in addition, it's the additives. So if you go in and you look at the traditional glucose beverage that they give you, you will see about 10 ingredients. Some you may know of, some you may not. The dyes, obviously we want to stay away from that always, but especially during pregnancy. To me, the red dye made me nervous. When my baby was in my womb, the most delicate time, do I really want to be just giving a boatload of that to the baby? Artificial flavoring is in the others, sodium benzoates. BVO is no longer in 2 of them, but still in 1 brand. And BVO is brominated vegetable oil. It was banned in Europe and is now banned here in the food and beverage industry. And hopefully we'll see that throughout healthcare as well. Try to think of the other
additives. The dyes are the biggest thing that people are absolutely freaking not. I am not going to go drink a bright orange beverage and a whole little thing of it. It makes me gag thinking of it, to be honest. Right. It's like a flat soda that's syrupy. And I already had a weak stomach. I already couldn't get my blood taken easily without potentially passing out. And here I was pregnant on an empty stomach having to drink this thing that made me feel so sick. And then you're thinking, and your mind is playing games on you too, going, I would not normally drink something with these colors in them or whatever. Absolutely. And yes, there are a couple of options that have less, but I don't think any of them have none. So it's so refreshing to see this option. Yeah. There's a reason they need so many preservatives in it too. The shelf life is insanely long. But even those brands see that there's a need for this. So one of them, the top one, actually distributes our product, which is lovely. It's great to see a move in this direction. But also on that note, if someone is in their lab and they're drinking the product and they're nervous about it, or it's not going down well, their stress increases. Well, stress increases blood sugar. That could be playing a role in it too. But I was why dread something when you can totally enjoy it? This product is a lemonade that my kids will use in the front yard at their lemonade stand. It is fully, I support it. It's higher quality lemonade than you'll get at various restaurants.
That's so huge.
If you have a choice, let's do something. Let's enjoy it, right? Pregnant once or a few times,
Absolutely. Especially if you have to go get a Poke after you drink it, might as well make at least the first half of that more enjoyable.
Yeah, right? Sit back and enjoy it. And we spent so many years fine-tuning this recipe. It's a patented recipe, and it has a bit of mint in it, which helps ease nausea, but it is just the right balance. And we just felt it was so important. It's for women, second trimester, may or may not be nauseous. Let's make this go down well.
I'm going to have to go find it and try it now because I'm just so curious.
I want to try the strawberry basil one.
Yes, it's so good. And we tried every single flavor under the sun. That one ended up winning out. It's really good.
That's awesome. So are there any potential health benefits or risks that are associated with using fresh test versus the Glucola drink?
There isn't. So we abide by the same GMPs, the same requirements. And so there's validations that we have to meet, quality standards. The QC for this is unbelievable. So these products are not just a fruit juice that you're getting out of the fridge. They're going through so many regulatory and quality checks. There is a variance threshold for the other brands, and for ours, we actually keep ours to a much tighter standard. So total exact same efficacy.
That's awesome. I love it. Because what I'm really loving is that I already knew that, but then I'm loving that other people get to hear that, because I think that people worry when there's an alternative, it might not be as good because it didn't come first. And it's just not the case. So it is weird to me that with it being an option that more places aren't using it or even preferring it or like starting with it rather than having people have to request to do this? Is it an accessibility issue? Like how easy is it to get? Does the patient have to order it, or is doctor office order it? Is it so expensive? Like what could be the barrier there?
Yeah, the barrier is cost. So traditional glucose beverages, you can imagine, are like a quarter, 50 cents, maybe $1. Our product, the ingredients are much far above that. The cost of goods are far above that. So even if we got it somewhere near there, we're never going to be as cheap. And we don't want to be as cheap because then the quality goes down. And so I think more and more hospitals will adopt it when prices do keep coming down, which they are with the higher increase in production. So patients typically need to go to the website or on Amazon and purchase it directly. And there's a cost associated with it. HSAs and FSAs do provide coverage, which is awesome. But typically you would be getting it for free. And so that's part of it. Now, again, like in the past year, more and more institutions have brought it on and they've got it to where they actually cover it for the patient. And that is our goal. We want it to be that first line product that they offer exclusive. So I won't name all the names, but there's very big hospital institutions that are bringing it on slowly but surely. And ladies out there, like if you're worried about bringing it up, please bring it up to your doctor. It is literally a 3-minute conversation. And if for some reason you're the first, which you're likely not, that next woman after you and the woman after them that are going to ask for it helps push the cause. So a physician, typically just needs to be asked about it a couple times and they'll look into it. And so it'll just be easier and easier for the women after you.
It's so true for so many aspects of pregnancy. If you don't bring it up, who's going to bring it up? And then it's like the first conversation, first time someone's hearing about it. So many times I feel like we just assume our doctors know like all of the options and everything out there, but there's so much they can't possibly keep up with it. So like bringing it up and being like, hey, have you heard of this? Can I do this? And then they can look into it,
Right. And the reason it's a little bit of a challenge is physicians have had to say no for so long because there was no other option. So they're really used to saying, no, we don't do an alternative. We don't do jelly beans. We don't do pasta. Until they look into this product, they will want to say no. But it's exactly, like I mentioned, it's exactly equivalent. And if for some reason your lab, so LabCorp endorses the product, as does Mako Lab and Axia and a bunch of others. But if for some reason that phlebotomist is unfamiliar or whatnot, I always suggest it's really nice to get a prescription from your doctor saying, this patient needs the fresh test because she has nausea or allergies or just a clean diet, diet regimen. So
that makes sense.
That should suffice.
So what has been the response from healthcare professionals as you're starting to like get it into these places? Have they been polled on it?
Well, every year it's better and better. Right now, I would say 90% of providers give it thumbs up.
That's huge.
So that's very exciting. Midwives, nearly all of them, I would say. Doctors, about 90%. And sometimes it does take them a week to look into it, to ask for all the documentation. But it is huge. Last year, I would say it's like half. And
so the other 10% are just being stubborn. Let's be honest. They are just being stubborn. They are just set in their ways. They actually did not read it. They just knew they were just convinced they were going to hate it. So they just didn't participate.
Maybe.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say one thing also that helps is we have an awesome return policy. So we think it really helps when a patient goes in, they have the information right there with them. So we have a powder line and we have a beverage. So they go in with the product and they share, hey, doctor, this is what I want to do. And then at that point, the doctors will read it, will most likely give the thumbs up because it meets all the requirements. But if for some reason not, we provide a refund. So we just try to make it really easy for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat that, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're not making the investment without, having a guarantee. So that's nice. Mm-hmm. So with all of the information out there and conflicting information and people who are a little bit resistant to change, what advice would you give to expecting women when they're kind of coming up to this crossroads of like, what do I take? What do I do for this testing?
I really suggest, and I think women are really good at this point in time, but just research your options. And if something doesn't sit right with you, explore why, like go with your gut, whatever you think feels good to you. Most importantly, it's important to screen for gestational diabetes. Whatever product you use, I'm all for. But if you have like a cleaner diet regimen, you feel empowered that you can bring this up.
I think that's so really helpful. Yeah, it's so hard when you're pregnant too. It's like such a vulnerable time of your life. And it's also hard to speak up for yourself. And there's so many options for everything. You just don't quite know what you want to do or what you should do. So I love that also that some people who are listening to this podcast, I know some people that aren't even pregnant that listen to this podcast, that they just know they want to have kids one day. And I also know that partners sometimes listen to this podcast. And I think partners can sometimes be a little bit wary of like, I don't know about all of this stuff, so it's good to have the options and to be able to see the research, see that the literal ingredients on it are different and healthier and safer for your body.
Exactly. Yeah. And one thing, this is like it's your second trimester, 24 weeks or 28, so up to third trimester when you're doing this test. So it's early, I think it was the first time in my pregnancy where I stood up for something. I was like, no, yes. I know a lot about diabetes. I'm not doing this product. And I was like, whoa, this is like a mama bear instinct thing. And it was very new for me. And then it carried me through like to delivery. Like I made really like empowered decisions of how I was going to do things. And like, it's really, really cool to like tap into that and listen to your body when you're pregnant.
It really is. I think this is one of the most like powerful parts of birth and the pregnancy experience is you get that first taste of advocating for yourself so that you can then learn to advocate for your children. I say it all the time in birth. And it's one of the reasons I just love what we do is you get to learn how to advocate. You get to learn that there are other options out there, like the Fresh Test and all these things. And it kind of just sets you up for your parenthood journey of having to, be the voice for this tiny little person that doesn't have a voice yet. So
I completely agree. It is huge.
And we're just so glad that we got to have you on to share with our listeners about this. I think this was so amazing and informative. And I think we learned a lot and now have like 10 million more questions that we want to hear all about sometime. But this was great. Thank you so much for coming on. This was wonderful.
Yeah. And you have everyone who's listening, be sure to check out the show notes because if you want to try the Fresh Test in your pregnancy, they have been so gracious to provide us with a discount code and you get 10% off of their product. So thank you so much, Jacqueline. And we hope to hear more from you and learn more from you in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you guys. And thank you for all that you do as doulas. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Birth, Baby. Thanks again to Longing for Orpheus for our music. You can look him up on Spotify. Remember to leave a review, share, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. See you next week.